Hi guys, it's Anna Marie. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming back to watch today. So today I'm going to tell you all about my thoughts on Sarah J. Maas's new adult fantasy House of Earth and Blood, or the first installment in the Crescent City series. I just finished this up a few days ago and needed some time to kind of gather my thoughts because I have a lot of thoughts. Like I wrote them all down. There's so many of them. I don't think I'm not gonna like just make this video an hour long. So I will say though that I am going to have spoiler-free thoughts toward the beginning, just kind of explain my experience with it and what it's about, although I'm sure everybody knows at this point. And then after that point, I'll put a timestamp down below. I'm gonna have some spoilery rant sessions and just kind of like how I felt about the whole thing. So I'll start off with the spoiler-free. As you probably know by now, and I really don't want to hold this book up the whole time because it is heavy and 800 pages, but it's so pretty to look at too. So this book is set in a city called Lunathian, or Crescent City, and this city is full of all different kinds of supernatural races. So you've got vampires, you've got demons, sorcerers, fae, angels, like basically any kind of supernatural being you can think of, they're all in this book. So we are following Bryce Quinlan. She is a girl in her mid-20s, and she is half fae, half human. They do have humans in this world, but obviously they're at the bottom of the social hierarchy. And because Bryce is half fae, half human, she is also kind of looked down upon. But as far as she's concerned, she has a great life. You know, she has a best friend, Danica, or Danica. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm not really sure. I say Danica in my head, so that's what I'll say for the continuation of this video. She has her best friend, Danica, and Danica is a wolf, or a shapeshifter into a wolf, and she has her whole pack, and Bryce is very close with their entire pack. And Bryce goes out and parties, and she has a great job. Like, she has a really good life, when all of a sudden, and this is not a spoiler because it's in the synopsis, her best friend and several other friends are murdered, brutally murdered. And that actually happens within the first 70 to 100 pages of the book. So it's kind of a shock to the system when you open it up and you start to get attached to these characters, and then all of a sudden they are gone. And we see Bryce's reaction to that, which is kind of shocking as well. But then there's a big time jump, and that's when the actual plot of the story begins. So you're set 2 years later, and Bryce is definitely experiencing a lot of grief. She's actually just kind of pushing it to the side and just going through the motions of life. She has a new apartment, she has the same job, she does not party much anymore, but she's just kind of going through the motions of life. And all of a sudden these murders start happening again in the same way, basically by the same demon that killed her friends. So she is brought in, and she is tasked with finding out who murdered Danica and her pack, and who is continuing to murder these people, because they thought that they found the person who did it, but turns out it wasn't him. So Bryce has to work with Hunt Athalar, who is an angel who has also been tasked to kind of be her guardian and help her track down this killer. So I'll start with the things that I really did like about the book. One thing that I really appreciated was the world building. I do like how much of the city we got to see and all the different races, and there was a very specific social hierarchy. You got the 4 different houses: House of Earth and Blood, House of Sea and something, House of Sky and Salt, something, I don't know. Okay, you have 4 houses. And the house that you're in kind of determines where you land in the totem pole of the society. At the top of the social hierarchy, you have the Asteri, which are basically these ancient immortal fae who possess the power of a star. And then down from there, it goes angels, and then you've got your shapeshifters, and it continues to go down. So Bryce's partner, Hunt Athalar, he is an angel, but he is basically a slave to the Asteri and the higher order angels, because hundreds of years ago he was part of a rebellion to go against the Asteri and try to bring a little bit of equality into their society. So he is basically a slave to the angels above him. And we get a lot of his backstory, and I like that. It does give us a little bit more sympathy for his character, because he is pretty dark at times. And he and Bryce have this very entertaining back and forth. They are both very stubborn and cutting and cruel. And so their tension and their back and forth is very witty and entertaining. And then it starts to develop into this romantic tension. And that is a lot of the book. Like, a lot of the book is the mystery and trying to find the killer. But a lot of it is also focused on their romantic tension. And I really did think that we were going to get to the romance a little bit sooner, like not just flirting, because a lot of the book is them flirting in a mean way. But then I expected us to get to the actual like romantic part, you know, like, are they together? Are they just flirting? But we did not get to that in the way that I thought we were going to. Another thing that I liked that Sarah J. Maas did with this character is I think she created a very relatable protagonist. Bryce is in her mid-20s and she is not successful at every single thing she does. She is kind of in a dead-end job. She's an assistant, and she is like struggling to figure out who she is and her place in the city. And Sarah J. Maas has created a very relatable character, because I feel like a lot of our readers are also thinking at times, okay, what am I doing? Like, where's my place? How do I fit into this world? I really liked that Sarah J. Maas created this relatable character, and while some of her issues did come from the grief that she felt for her friends, I think some of her issues also just came from the fact that she is a woman in her mid-20s and she's feeling lost. Like, she doesn't know where her place is in the world. So I really like that Sarah J. Maas included a relatable character. Sarah J. Maas always does a really good job with the bond between a friendship, and then eventually it'll evolve into kind of like the romantic bond. And I'll be honest, the bond between Bryce and Hunt, without giving any spoilers, it does kind of remind me of Aelin and Rowan. Which I'll get into a little bit more. I feel like Sarah J. Maas has her very specific relationship tropes that she follows, and I definitely saw that repeated in House of Earth and Blood. But I did still like that bond. Like, they are both in a very dark place. They've experienced a lot of trauma and grief, and in their friendship and eventual romantic relationship, they kind of help bring each other out of a really dark place. So I really liked seeing that. As for general things like the plot, I did feel like it was a little bit inconsistent. There was a burst of action at the very beginning of the book. Then you had about 500 pages of very slow progression of the plot. You would get one or two little hints for the mystery every 100 pages or so, and it was very, very slow moving. And then the last 100 pages of the book, it was just like snap, snap, okay, a lot of things have happened and I'm kind of confused because it was very rushed. And a lot of things were revealed, and it was just kind of inconsistent overall. So I did spend a lot of time waiting for one thing to fall into place and then for the action to kind of pick up after that, but we were given several clues and then they weren't really pursued. And then at the very end, we were like, oh, okay, this is what was really going on the entire time. Just we weren't given access to that. And as for the writing, I really love Sarah J. Maas's writing. I love that she gives us multiple perspectives. I think with any fantasy, I'm a fan of multiple perspectives, just giving us access to a little bit more of the world. I don't think that her writing is any different in the adult genre versus her young adult books. It was very similar. And I will say that I have only read the Throne of Glass series. I have not read A Court of Thorns and Roses, so I can't speak to that. One thing I do love about Sarah J. Maas's writing is that she is very much a show, not tell author. She uses very action-packed descriptions to describe the emotions in the room. She'll give us an action rather than an emotion. She'll give us something like Bryce hissed at him or she bristled. You know, those are very small actions, but we can attach an emotion to those things because we understand the action. So I really do like that. She gives the reader the ability to kind of infer instead of just saying, she was very angry at Hunt in this moment, you know? So I really like her writing style in that way. I did notice that it is a little repetitive. I think I read like 5 or 6 phrases or sentences that I can specifically remember reading in the Throne of Glass series, which of course, I mean, like, she has a very specific writing style. I just noticed that she relies on a couple of phrases to use over and over and over. And also one trope that I think that she relies on a lot is the girl who hates the overprotective male. I think in this book she actually gave him a name and acknowledged the traits of an overprotective male. I think it was an alpha hole. I'm pretty sure it was. And I've seen that with every character of hers. Like, they're all like, I don't want an overprotective male. Let me do my thing. I'm independent. And then the girl falls for the overprotective alpha hole. So it was repetitive, but you know, I get it. People appreciate and enjoy that trope. I enjoyed it, so she'll probably keep using it in the future. These thoughts are going to be kind of like chaotic all over the place. But one thing that I also was kind of frustrated by was the world building in the book. So I remember in the Throne of Glass series, Sarah J. Maas very intricately put the world building information in the story so that as we read, we learned more about the world. And I thought it was done very well. I didn't feel confused or overwhelmed at any time. In this book, I was very confused, very overwhelmed. It was very chaotic. There were info dumps at times where I did not think there needed to be information about the world. And we were just left with so many questions, and things were cut off that we just don't know. So I was just kind of disappointed in that. Like, I thought that she could have done a better job telling us about the world, this new world that we were in, because I really liked that it was kind of an urban fantasy set in modern time, a lot different from her usual fantasy setting and time period. But I don't feel like she did it justice. I feel like she could have done it a lot better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get into some spoiler thoughts. So if you have not read the book, I would stop here. If you read the book later, definitely come back and chat with me about some of your thoughts. I'm going to get into some spoilers now. So if you haven't read the book, I'll see you later. For those of you who stayed, let's get into it. So I want to talk about characters first, and obviously I'll start with Bryce. I did not connect with her at all at first. The very first little bit, like the first 100 pages, it was very stereotypical party girl. She doesn't care, but she has this certain group of friends that she's really, really close with. I did not connect with her at all, and I was actually really worried that I was gonna hate this book. Obviously, I got past that first 100 pages and I realized that there were a lot more layers to Bryce than I thought. And she is so overcome with this grief at first, but as the story progresses, she kind of reveals small layers of herself over time to, you know, to the readers or to Hunt. You can see that there is a lot more to her than we met at the very beginning of the book. And I feel like she takes on a lot of her pain and a lot of that grief. She puts a lot of responsibility on herself. She's basically punishing herself, both with like the leg wound, staying away from partying and alcohol and friends. Like, she's punishing herself because she feels like it was her fault that her friends were killed. I do think that she makes a lot of rash decisions. I was not okay with a lot of the decisions that she made. I don't even really know where to start. So after Bryce finds out that Hunt kind of betrayed her, and he knew about Danica for a while, and he was trying to get this synth or this material that would kind of restart his rebellion against the Asteri. So she finds this out. She is mad for like a day, and then the next day she comes back and tries to buy him, putting herself in debt. And then when that doesn't work, she wants to trade herself for him to go be tortured and be a slave. And I really wanted to just shake her shoulders for that second and be like, okay, Bryce, I think you're blinded a little bit here. I don't understand your attachment to him. Yes, you flirted a lot. Okay, you kissed some. He's been nice. You know, he's helped you through your grief, but like, you don't understand what you're doing. You're giving your life for this guy, and he just betrayed. I just didn't understand her reaction, and it really made me mad. Like, I would understand if Sarah had stopped with the I'll buy you and I'll be in debt for like 300 years. Okay, that's a little far, but then she proceeds to sacrifice herself. Now, that's one of Bryce's like most beautiful character traits, is that she sacrifices for the people that she loves, but I did not understand how she could do that for Hunt in that moment after only spending a couple weeks with him, and they never really even progressed into a romantic relationship. It was all just flirting before that. So I didn't love that decision, but it is what it is. So Bryce's relationship with Rune is another thing that kind of confused me at times, because from what Bryce told us, they spent a lot of time together when she was younger and she first visited Crescent City. I mean, she says they were best friends, and then they had a fight where he called her a half-breed whore, and then she stops talking to him. And I felt kind of frustrated about that because where I later saw her motivations for doing that, you know, she wanted to kind of keep her distance from Rune because she didn't want him to realize that she was Starborn. But it made me really sad because Rune was trying so hard and she wasn't giving him anything, you know? And it wasn't until the end that she was like, do you want to come over to watch a football game? Or football, I don't know if it's football. But it was just really frustrating and sad that she didn't give him anything to go on. But he was trying so hard, so that made me sad. Okay, one more thing about Bryce. Let's talk about the scene on the couch. So Hunt has literally just gotten a body part chopped off. His wings were chopped off with a sword. And for an angel, I guess wings are an extra limb, basically, and he was bleeding out and like near death, okay? So Bryce takes him home, puts him in bed. He's still bleeding a lot. It's fine. The romantic tension reaches a point that you can't turn back. So they're kissing. They have moved over to the couch. I don't even know how to say this because my kids are gonna watch it. So they're on the couch. Things get a little hot and heavy, and Bryce apparently gets so caught up in what they're doing that she forgets that Hunt is gravely injured. So he gets completely forgotten because she's just so caught up in what's happening that she pushes him against the couch and he starts bleeding again. And that moment was so awkward, and we spent the entire book waiting for this romantic tension to build up to something, and then the moment we get it, we get the most awkward scene that ever existed. And like after that, she's just like, no, let's go to the hospital, you're bleeding. I don't know, I just really hated that scene. Like I hated that that's what it built up to. And I didn't understand why they couldn't wait like a week until his back was healed and just do their thing, you know? That was disappointing. Hunt is basically the angel form of Rowan. I feel like Sarah J. Maas is gonna give us an entire series and many more series probably with the same male trope in each character. I mean, I feel like she does it very well. Like she does this brooding, dark, irredeemable, is that a word? Irredeemable? It is a word. Okay. She gives us this dark, brooding, irredeemable character. And then eventually he is softened by his female counterpart. She does it very well. I feel like she did a good job with Hunt, giving us a little bit of his backstory and that relationship with Shahar. Anyway, he lost the love of his life. But I just felt like I was reading about Aelin and Rowan. Like honestly, you could have switched their names out, Aelin and Rowan, and that was who we got. Because of course by the end, Bryce became the most powerful. No one has ever seen this much power before Aelin. Hunt, with his lightning thing, no one's ever seen that kind of power before either. Rowan. I just kind of wanted new characters and like new tropes for these characters. I was totally fine when Bryce did not have starborn powers, star powers, powers of a star. I don't know. I was fine when she was just a half-fae, half-human assistant who was trying to figure out who murdered her friend. I was totally fine with that. But we again get the most powerful of ever, and we basically have the same characters as Throne of Glass. I really, really want more of Rune. I wish we'd gotten more of him. I feel like she was exploring like a new character type in Rune, and we didn't get a lot of him. Yes, he was still that, overprotective male, but I don't know, I just feel like there was a softer side to him, and I wanted to get to know him a little bit more, and I wanted more of his relationship and that dynamic between he and his father. And of course I wanted a little bit more of their romance between him and this witch that he didn't know who she was for like 3 times that he met her, but I wanted more of that. And I really hope that we get more of that in the coming books because I really wanted more. How many times am I gonna say more? One more character that I really wanted more from in this book was Fury. I feel like we got little to no information about one of the most powerful characters in this entire world. She literally went on the boat to save Bryce and told the Viper Queen to get out of her sight. And everyone does what she says, and she's very powerful and very cool and like a spy or something, and I want her backstory. How did this happen? And I like at the end that we saw that she and, is it Juniper, were in a relationship, and that's why she was talking to Juniper and not Bryce, which still kind of frustrates me, but I understand it. But I really hope that Fury becomes a more prominent side character in the next couple books, because I want to know her entire backstory. I want to know a lot more about her, because honestly, there were some points where I was more invested in Fury's character than I was in Bryson Hunt. So hopefully we'll get some more of her in later books. I do think it's cool, and I think a lot of Sarah J. Maas fans are starting to realize this. I think that she is starting to create one universe with all of her series being in the same universe. Because we get a lot of portal traveling. Of course, in the Throne of Glass series, Aelin goes into the portal and she sees all of these different worlds. I think she even sees like a fae couple in one of her worlds, which I guess could go to the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And then in this book, several times it's mentioned that there are many worlds, not just, the hell realm and then the angel realm, and then where we are, there's many different realms. And we figure out that Bryce has the power toward the end because of the horn and her starbornness, that she can open these portals. So I think that could really lead to some interesting developments with some of these worlds. Like, I'm imagining Aelin and Rowan going to Crescent City. I'm sure that's never gonna happen, but it's kind of funny to imagine. Let's talk about the last 100 pages of the book, where we were given everything that we were not given before and everything that was going on that we didn't know about. Villain monologues. I don't like them. I feel like it's the easy way out. I don't really feel, and I know that this is not supposed to be reality. This is fantasy. We read these because this is not reality, but it's just not. It just doesn't feel realistic to me to have the villain at the very end take 20 minutes to explain every single detail of what he did, instead of just killing off the character he was trying to kill off. And I get that Bryce was trying to make time to save everybody and to save herself, but I don't like the villain monologue thing, because it just undid the last 400 pages that I just read, where we found one or two clues, and then it just falls apart because he decides that right now he's going to give us this 20-minute spill telling us everything he did that we didn't know that he did, and then the mystery is solved. And I really don't get the whole flash drive in the jacket thing, because she's worn that jacket for 2 years and she just now felt that there was a tiny like thing in the jacket. I feel like if you put a jacket on every day and you're holding it, you're wearing it, at some point you're gonna feel a flash drive in the back of a jacket. But she found it in the exact moment that she needed to find it. So, convenience. Bryce became this like genius at deception and interrogating and being a detective, but she was an assistant at an art gallery. I'm not really sure how that goes together, but she became a very good detective when she needed to be, so we're proud of her for that. I saw a lot of conveniences in this plot, and I've just realized after reading a lot of fantasy that it just feels like a cop-out when I see these convenient scenarios that undo all of the work that they have done for 400 pages that I've read about that took a very long time. I'm not saying that I did not like this book. I enjoyed reading it. I liked the characters, I liked the writing, I loved the world. Like, I will definitely read this entire series. I'm a Sarah J. Maas fan, but I just noticed the flaws in it, and I notice more flaws the more I read. I've actually decided to pick up A Court of Thorns and Roses. I may regret this, but I just feel like I want to be able to compare characters. And I know it's probably not the best idea to compare series, but I have a lot of time now because we're staying at home. So I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read the series, and I think it's gonna take me not a lot of time. So I will tell you guys what I think about that, and maybe make a video comparing all 3 series. I don't know, we'll see. So those are my spoiler-free and spoiler thoughts on House of Earth and Blood, the first in the Crescent City series. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would love to talk more in the comments about your thoughts on this book. And if you have read the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, share your thoughts with me, spoiler-free of course, in the comments on what you think I should, how you think I should prepare myself for reading that series after reading the Throne of Glass and then the House of Earth and Blood. Goodness, that took a lot of words. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for coming to watch. I will see you next time.